Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen.
With me today is abundance teacher and money coach, Jody Lynn Craven.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
Okay, Jody Lynn, now you and I, when we have guests on the show, we often comment that just about anything can happen here. We've had all kinds of technical issues happen. We've had electrical storms. We've had hosts knocked off the air. Today, we're in the middle of my roof being done by roofers. And so far, you guys are reporting you're not hearing it, which is a good thing. Right now, my head is being pounded with all this hammering and you're not hearing it. So it's a good trade-off, but we're going to see if we can kind of work through this and, maybe everything will be okay. And it kind of fits because this is a really unusual topic we have going on today because we have a guest who's going to tie together the following: speculative fiction, climate change, psychedelic therapy, and billionaireism. I mean, I'm not even sure where to begin on this. Do you have any preconceptions as you hear that?
Yeah. I think to me, it sounds like bringing forward the idea of materialism and how our society has been run on materialism. Go get a job, go get, a pension job, buy the car, buy the house, buy the boat. The things will make you happy. I think that it's along those lines if I was to speculate.
Okay.
Maybe.
So materialism, that's something we all kind of deal with on a day-to-day basis. It kind of fits. All right. So let's explore. This is going to be fun. Our guest is Diana Colleen, and she is an author who has put out a book called They Could Be Saviors. We're going to learn more about that in a moment. But Diana, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
We're glad to have you. All right. So you got to wire this together for us. Okay. Because I think we're probably on the right track here, but you got to tie the whole thing together for us so we know what we're talking about.
Sure. So, like you said, it's near future speculative fiction. So there's no actual dates in it, but I would say maybe 30 years from now. So not much has changed from the world we live in today. There's some new technologies, but climate change is impacting the world at a greater rate than it is now, but we still have a survivable planet. And the premise is kidnapping billionaires and forcing them into psychedelic assisted therapy so that they work together to solve climate change.
Is that before or after they're in the middle of their psychedelic trip?
So they solve the climate crisis after they go through the psychedelic therapy.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah. Well, it's reassuring,
A little bit of a spoiler there that they do solve it. Well, they have a plan formulated to solve it.
That's a good thing. I like that. Well, it actually is a nice change because very often, not just, I don't want to pick on billionaires particularly, but just people in general, it's amazing how many people do things where they claim to have a plan, but the rest of us look on and we say, huh?
Yeah.
Concepts of a plan.
I mean, really, how many people can go through life and say that they've never experienced that either with somebody else or themselves? Let's be perfectly honest.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the way it works. So,
Or
all right,
government.
well, fill in some more blank spots. Like, where did this come from? Where did this whole idea come from? Why did you even decide to write this amazingly connected book?
It came to me. I have never been one of those people that says that I have a book in me that, before I die, I'm going to write a book, because I think a lot of people say that. That has never been on my radar. And I went through a very challenging period in my life in 2018. And I thought my life was optional at that point. And I was very fortunate to find an underground psychedelic assisted therapist who I believe saved my life. And not only did it save my life, it changed the trajectory of my life. And I found, through psychedelics, I found spirituality and tools that kept me alive, like meditation. And this entire book was given to me by the universe, I believe, through meditation. So the initial story concept came in a meditation. And then after I actually started writing it down, I never really experienced what most writers call writer's block, because when I got stuck, I meditated, and the rest of the story came to me. So when I started writing it, I had no idea how it was going to end. I had no idea what the characters were going to do. It just came throughout a period of time through meditation.
Wow, that's really something. And we understand that concept. We've talked about that a lot. Jody Lynn is a channeler. I occasionally channel here without thinking about it on the show, and I never know what's going to come out. So I get that side of it. Now, but psychedelics, are you talking about mushrooms?
Different substances. So the substance that saved me initially was MDMA.
Okay.
And since then, I have experiences with mushrooms and ayahuasca, DMT. So a range. But in the book,
Apparently, yeah. Which one works better? I'm not really terribly experienced with this. So which one works better?
they have different sort of effects. So MDMA is very, very good at heart opening. So it's great for relationship issues. So I had a lot of trauma, familial trauma. I've had sexual assaults, things like that. So my therapist decided that MDMA would be the one to start with. It's also very predictable in a sense. So mushrooms, ayahuasca, DMT, you have no idea what's going to happen when you take those drugs. But with MDMA, it's almost always a positive experience. It's blissful. So the street name is Molly. And so, like, kids will take it before they go raving, and it's the love drug. So it's a very positive experience. And it's not, you don't have like the visuals and that kind of thing. It's all inside. You really go into your heart, and your fears are gone. So like looking at your trauma without fear. So a lot of times when people do talk therapy, it kind of re-traumatizes them because they're feeling that trauma again. But with MDMA, your heart is open and you're looking at it from a different perspective. And it's much easier to look at your trauma through that lens.
One of my other co-hosts, Joel Elston, is an advocate of therapeutic mushroom type therapy. He always likes to emphasize that you should always do it with a professional. You should never be doing it by yourself. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. So yeah, there's definitely two ways to take psychedelics. There's the on your own for a trip. You want to have an experience, and that can be quite dangerous. And the psychedelic assisted therapy, I'm now a trained facilitator, so I know how to hold space for somebody. I know how to keep them safe. So safety is like the number one thing when it comes to psychedelics, keeping somebody safe. So yeah, we talk about set and setting. So it's all about mindset going into the trip. You have to be you have to know what to expect, even though you can't know exactly what to expect. You have to go in with intention and knowing that you're safe. Whereas, if you're out going to a concert, or you have no idea what you're going to encounter out in the world, what other people's reactions are going to be, and you have no idea what kind of trip you're going to have. So that can really lead to some kind of nightmarish experiences.
Yeah, which is why you want to have a professional. Now, it's also something we should note that here in the U.S., I believe there are 3 locations in the U.S., 3 states, or 2 or 3 states, and I believe D.C., where it's legal to do this. I don't know what the rules are in Canada. Do you know what the rules are in Canada, Jody Lynn?
I think it's illegal.
It's illegal everywhere.
I don't know, because Canada changed their like safe substances across the board. Not safe substances, but they made safe supply like legal supply. So I don't know. I know that if you're caught with a certain amount, it's now legal. I don't think it's supposed to be legal. Like you're supposed to carry it around and do those kinds of things.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between legal and decriminalized. So like Oregon, Colorado, those are the two states where I don't think it's actually legal, but it's decriminalized.
Right.
Seattle is decriminalized. I believe Oakland is. I think there's a few other actual cities that are decriminalized. So practicing here in Seattle is somewhat safe. Like no one's going to be bashing down my door trying to arrest me because I'm facilitating. But it is still illegal. It is still federally illegal. It's similar to cannabis. The laws around cannabis are not federally regulated.
Okay.
Well, it is, but the states, yeah.
Yeah, that's the era that we live in, where there are changes going on, and often they're going in both directions at the same time, which really confuses things.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not straightforward.
Yeah, I'm curious. What was your relationship to drugs before this, and like how did you get to the point where you're like, I want to go see an underground, I don't even know what you call it, but like, how did that pop into your frame of reference?
That's such a funny question, because when I was young, like in middle school, so I grew up in the 80s, the war on drugs was still a big thing, the frying pan with the egg. And I had this oversized t-shirt. It was the ugliest thing, but big block letters said drug-free body. I wore that thing so proudly, and I got teased. But yeah, I was always very anti-drug. Growing up, I thought drugs were bad, like across the board, drugs are bad. And I think I tried marijuana for the first time. I guess I was in Canada. I'm visiting my sister. I am Canadian. I was visiting my sister, and she had some, and I was terrified because it was still illegal in Canada, and I was like, oh my gosh! But I did it, and I didn't touch it again. And then when it became legalized in Washington, I had a friend who was like, Diana, you really need to try this for sleep. I've been an insomniac for pretty much my whole life, and pharmaceuticals don't work for me. Like almost nothing works for me to sleep. She's like, you need to try cannabis. And I was like, oh, I don't know. But I did. I started, and now I use cannabis very regularly to sleep. So that was my intro sort of to drugs. And before the my suicidal period, my very first psychedelic experience, I don't recommend this. I went into the jungle in Costa Rica and did ayahuasca in a group
Many
ceremony.
people do that. Yeah.
Pardon?
I've heard of lots of people who do that. I've considered that. I haven't made it yet.
Yeah. So like I'd heard about it. I'd heard that it's like getting 20 years of therapy in one night. I'd heard about the purging and what to expect. And I thought, yeah, this is what I need. And it was a horrendous experience.
No.
I thought I was going to die. I was purging for 15 hours straight. Like most people purge a couple of times, but first I've been told that it's because I had so much trauma, that so much needed to get cleaned out, that my body was just getting rid of everything. And so like it's fairly typical when people are purging that it looks like black tar coming out of you. And I just remember just black tar coming out like nonstop for 15 hours. But like it wrecked my body. I was so dehydrated in the middle of the jungle. I really thought I was going to die. But I have done it again since then. So I got over that.
You did it
Your
round
journey
two.
is really quite remarkable. You start off with a T-shirt saying that you're drug-free, then you go off into the jungle, and then you leave the jungle and you go. I mean, this is a journey going on here.
Yeah.
It is.
I mean, it's a trip, yeah, but it's also this is a journey.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Yeah. And then the therapy was just absolutely life-changing. And that therapist put me into a women's group where we would journey together as a group. And then some of us sort of split off. And now I'm in a women's circle that is mostly psychedelic therapists. So we journey together like 3 times a year. We go on a retreat for a weekend and journey together. And it's amazing. It is so amazing to be with other women and experiencing that together and having the time to integrate what we learn over the weekend with each other. It's magical.
And you've referred a few times now to the therapeutic side, which is controversial, but there is more and more evidence piling up on that side. So it's becoming a little bit more acceptable than it was before. But let's dive into that a little bit. What kind of therapeutic benefit are we talking about?
Oh my gosh. So the studies on psychedelics actually began in the 40s. So there were tons and tons of studies like 40s, 50s, 60s, and showing so much promise for addiction. Addiction is one of the biggest things that it can treat, and there's so much evidence that shows how effective it is, and also PTSD. So like our war veterans, it's showing remarkable things with our war veterans. But Daryl Nixon, during the Vietnam War, he saw psychedelics as the counterculture. All the hippies who were against the war, they were taking psychedelics. And he basically shut down all research on psychedelics and scheduled the drugs. So they're Schedule 1 drugs, which means you can't even study them, which is just, it's insane. So there were no studies being done for decades, and things are starting to move. So studies are being done, but I think it was last summer, MAPS, the Multidisciplinary Association of Psychedelic Studies, was trying to get MDMA approved for therapeutic use, and the FDA denied it, partly because you can't have a control group. So if you're taking a psychedelic, you know that you have taken a psychedelic. There's no placebo that you can take where you're like, oh, did I get it? Did I not get it? Because you know if you got it or you didn't get it. So there can't be a control group. So the FDA did not approve MDMA for therapeutic reasons, partly because of that.
That's really interesting. It's interesting on a number of different levels. I mean, the late 60s, and especially in the 1970s, that's when they started the so-called war on drugs. And there have been wars on all kinds of things: drugs, poverty, terrorism, all kinds of things. And one of the things that is consistent about these wars is that they always increase the thing that they're doing the war on, which makes me think they should probably do a war on general prosperity, and then everybody would be better off.
Oh, that's crazy. I've seen like tote bags that say we need a war on farmers markets. Yeah.
But you kind of tapping into that with your novel. Do you think of it as a novel? I'm not sure how you're framing it.
It is. Yeah, it's definitely a work. It's a work of fiction.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm kind of trying to promote it almost as nonfiction because it's about the message. It's really about the message.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in the context of that message, this fictional story that you've been telling, or that you are telling, that you told in the book, what do you see as not just the message, but the role that all the different pieces play, because we laid them out in the beginning. I mean, you had climate change, you had billionaires, you had all these things that normally we don't actually connect them all together. You're connecting them, which sounds like a trip to me. I mean, it really does. But I mean, talk about how those tie together.
Yeah. So my big goal is to change the narrative around billionairism. So I believe right now society looks at billionairism as success, like something to look up to, like wealth, right? And I want to change the narrative to it's a mental illness that can be cured with psychedelic therapy. So if you look at hoarding is a mental illness that typically affects the person and their family. But billionaire hoarding is affecting all of us and the planet. And I want people to understand that it is a mental illness, and we can cure that and change the world.
Well, not to be too sardonic about it, but how do you know they're not already on trips?
Oh, see, that goes back to the difference between psychedelic assisted therapy and psychedelics for a trip, right? So, I mean, everyone talks about Elon Musk, right? Everyone knows he does psychedelics. He is not the poster child for psychedelics. He's not, I don't know him personally. I don't know what his intentions are when he does it. But from what I've seen, I doubt that he is sitting with a therapist.
Well, I would agree with the second one for sure. I'm not sure about the drugs part. I mean, half of what, well, I won't even go there. But the point is, because we don't normally do political stuff, so I want to try to avoid going down a political road.
Sure.
But when I'm trying to apply this whole idea of psychedelics and billionaires, and I'm not even going to the climate change yet. We'll save that for a moment. But just the drugs and the billionaires. First of all, getting billionaires to do this is going to be an interesting thing right there. But there's also this ties into a couple of shows we did about a year ago. There are a small number of very wealthy people who get all the attention among the wealthy. There are a large number of wealthy people who get no attention because they aren't attention seekers at all. And they usually, not always, but they usually don't fit the same stereotypes as the attention seekers. So I'm wondering how much of an effect that has on your storyline and what we're talking about.
So the billionaires in the story are definitely the high profile billionaires. There are some, hints at who these people might be in real life, if you get my drift. Yeah. So definitely the high profile billionaires are who I want to direct this at. But the narrative that I'm trying to change is about all billionaires. I personally do not think it's moral to have that kind of wealth. So even the good billionaires, the ones that we know who do really amazing things with their money, they still have more wealth than anyone could spend in hundreds of lifetimes. There's no reason for them to be just sitting on that kind of wealth. Like if I had $1 billion and I walked by somebody starving on the street, I couldn't just keep walking by. But billionaires walk by they walk by that every day and do nothing about it. And I don't understand how any human being can live like that. And the philanthropy, just they get tax breaks on that. So it's like, sure, you're doing great things with that money, but you're also getting tax breaks, which means that the rest of us are actually paying for it. And a lot of them have their own, see, there goes my menopause brain. I can't find the word. Foundations. Yeah. They have their own foundations. So they're funneling their money into those foundations, getting tax breaks for all of that, and not necessarily even doing anything with the money. one of the billionaires we've talked about already has a foundation, and that foundation only spends like 5% of the money that's in the foundation. So what good is that foundation if it's not spending the money that it has?
Of course, I can also think of somebody like a J.K. Rowling, who has given away well more than half of what she's collected.
Mm-hmm. But
Keanu
she
Reeves
still
like
has.
What's
Sorry,
that?
Jerlyn, what was that?
I was just adding Keanu Reeves. Apparently, he gives away a lot of money too.
Mhm.
I don't know if he's billionaire status or not. I have no idea his net worth, but
Yeah. No, like Taylor Swift gives away a ton of money. She does amazing things with her money. Oprah does amazing things with her money.
Mhm.
However, how did they get their money? Like the systems that are in place, right? Like systems need to change, and societal consciousness needs to change about wealth. Nobody should have that kind of wealth while other people are starving. It's just there. I think we, as a society, have a scarcity mindset, even though the world is abundant. And if there is enough for everyone, there is absolutely enough for everyone. If one person doesn't have more than 7 billion people.
And the scarcity mindset, I think, is starting to get to the core of it. One of the things that has been pointed out on this show, among other places, by guests, is that if you were to take all the wealth in the world and distribute it evenly among everybody within a very short period of time, you'd have the redistribution back to a huge amount of it being in the hands of a few, just because of the scarcity mindset. People would actually end up putting themselves in a position where they would fritter it would like go through their fingers. It'd fritter it away.
Right.
So you can just redistribute it all you want to, but it's not going to change that. So the question becomes, well, what does change it?
That's where the psychedelics come in.
So it sounds like it's not just the billionaires who are going to be on the psychedelics. You're going to put a lot of people on the psychedelics.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think, obviously there are contraindications for psychedelics, so not everyone can take them. You should get checked out by a medical professional to make sure that you can take these substances. But like, I see homelessness, like the people who need it the most, getting this kind of treatment, it would be world changing to have everyone have access to this. But right now it's illegal and very expensive. So the people that need it the most don't have access to it.
So do you think that legalization is really the main path?
Yes, legalization. But I'm also, I'm quite afraid of big pharma getting a hold of it. And like, they're going to say that, okay, it's legal to take this pill because we synthesized it and we put it into this measurable amount. So you can take this, but it's still illegal to go out in the forest and pick a mushroom. That's what I'm afraid of.
And one thing that I was actually politically involved when I was younger. I have since weaned myself off of that, realizing that there are no winners in politics. So I got away from that. But back when I was still involved in it, I supported a very minor political candidate for president back in the 1990s, who made a very interesting comment. He said, it doesn't really matter what you promote. It doesn't really matter what viewpoint you have on any issue. You can be sure of one thing. Once they finally implement it, it will not be implemented the way you want it to be.
So true. That is so true. Yes.
Which is one reason why.
Yeah.
Oh, did we lose you all?
My microphone is giving me a hard time. I think
there you go.
Hear me? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's one of the reasons I like that guy, by the way. But to me, it's an important point, and it kind of ties into what you're trying to do in my mind, because I mean, I'm not quite sure how you're proposing to get from A to B. I mean, I get the sense where you want to get to. You want us all doing drugs. Well, not quite, but you want that to be available.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure. You want us all to deal with our shit.
That's part of the story. What's that, Jody Lynn?
She wants us all to deal with our shit.
Yeah. Well, and we talk about that all the time. You know? we managed to get there without the drugs, but yeah, she's doing it, with the drugs.
Mhm.
But basically, they do the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not saying that drugs are the only way. I fully believe in meditation, obviously. Yoga, breath work. Like there are a lot of ways to get there. But yeah, drugs make a really good story.
We also get a lot of we had a lot of people eyeballing this as we got started. We had a huge number of people. We normally don't get a lot of people watching the live cast. Today we start off with like 20. Like, okay, yeah, we got somebody's attention.
Great.
Yeah.
And this is part of the coin. But yeah, so as I'm thinking about how all this fits together, I mean, I presume that the storyline that you put together for your quasi book of fiction / nonfiction that you want to pass off as fiction, which I still have quite worked out. But maybe I need to take a drug to figure that one out. But I kind of get that part, sort of a little bit. But there are also a lot of holes in my mind about how all this works. I guess what I want to ask you is this: to what degree do you believe that free will plays a role in this?
The role in the story,
in the entire storyline, in terms of what you want to see happen, in terms of what kind of changes you'd like to have people experience. What role does free will play in all of that?
Wow. Oh, that's a big question. So like in the book, so I've talked about set and setting, so mindset and going into the therapy with intentions and voluntarily. Like you don't want to force somebody into psychedelic therapy. That's not going to work. So in the novel, it does explain sort of how they get the billionaires to agree to the therapy. So I do not believe in forcing anyone to take drugs, if that sort of answers your question.
Well,
But
I mean, they're taking drugs, but it's also the billionaire side, and the people who accumulate wealth. Because, like one thought that goes through my mind is, I mentioned my other co-host, Joel Elston. He is a coach who has all kinds of interesting clients, including many billionaires. And one of the things he once told me about his billionaire clients is how stunned they were to become billionaires. Like it was like the last thing they thought it was going to happen in their lives, and then it happened. It's like, what just happened? They didn't even know what to make of it. Mm-hmm. And then they're trying to figure out what to do with it in the midst of now all of a sudden their family members are trying to get a piece of them, and they're constantly being haunted by it. So there's like this whole thing that goes along with it. And one of the very common themes that plays out from what he tells me is that people who have large amounts of wealth end up having tremendously difficult challenges with relationships.
I'm sure.
The wealth is the way of the relationships. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of challenge going on that we don't, the rest of us don't even think about. I mean, he once told me a story about he was doing a Zoom call with one of his clients, a billionaire client, and the client was talking about something, and my friend Joel was trying to push him to really look at a particular issue that he was dealing with. And in the process of doing it, the client, as they're doing the Zoom call, he just kind of reaches down to his desk and picks up a piece of paper and says, "Oh, I forgot about that." And Joel says, "What is it?" "Oh, it's a $17 million dividend check. I forgot to do something with it." I mean, that's the way they think about it. It's like, it's not the top of their mind at all. They're dealing with this other stuff. The last thing they're dealing with is the money, or the last thing they're even thinking about is the money. Mm-hmm. And so I'm trying to reconcile what I know, and I'm not a millionaire, so I don't really know it well, but from what I've learned about that mindset, I'm trying to reconcile it with what you're talking about, and my mind is boggling.
Well, I think, and obviously I'm not a billionaire either, so I don't know, but I would guess that they are disconnected. So they're kind of in a bubble, right? So they're surrounded by sycophants, and they really don't know how the rest of the world lives, right? So they definitely have a different world that they're living in. And so I believe that disconnection is the problem. So they're disconnected from nature, they're disconnected from humanity. And that's the core of the book, is reconnecting them to what's important.
Okay. I think the disconnection probably isn't limited to the wealthy, but I get what you're saying.
Oh, it's definitely not limited to the wealthy, for sure.
Well, I see it's quite all over the place.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. But psychedelics really, like, once you have experienced connection, and not just with the drugs, meditation, all the things that we've talked about, but once you have experienced true connection with nature and humanity, you can't unsee that. So, like, I've been through that. My relationship with nature is completely different than it was prior to these experiences. My connection to my fellow humans, my empathy, my compassion is completely different than it was prior. So that's my goal. My goal is to, like, we as a society, we value wealth and competition, and I want society to value connection, empathy, and contribution.
Let me tell you this. This is two themes that have come up a lot lately in episodes, both interviews with guests and conversations with co-hosts like you, Jody Lynn. And the reason they keep coming up is because I keep bringing them up. As the host, that's one of my things I can do. You have power. Kind of fun, you know. But it's also because it's something I observe a lot, not just in this context. Well, I'm not even sure what this context is, to be perfectly honest. I'm still trying to get a handle on this context. But in the context of all the other kinds of topics that we talk about, I see the same thing playing out over and over again. I'm really curious to see what your take is on it, because we just a few years ago we went through a pandemic, and we're still experiencing many of the so-called side effects of that pandemic that kind of keep going on and on and on. Some of them are bad, some of them are good. I mean, there's like a mixture. There's a range of stuff that has happened there. But I think there's a much bigger pandemic that gets ignored, and it's been going on not just for a few years, but for generations. It's a pandemic of blame and victimhood.
Mm-hmm.
And it applies to, as far as I can tell, virtually everybody in every society on the face of the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And the more that I give attention to that, the more I realize people who want to have change have to face the fact that this blame and victimhood thing goes on, and not just that it goes on in others, but that it goes on in themselves. In other words, we're all challenged by it. So I'm curious, bring that idea into what you're talking about and what you talked about in your novel. How do you think about that?
I personally, I was talking about this on another podcast yesterday about how I believe that I am responsible for my entire story, even the parts that I didn't write. And what that means is, even though things happen to me that are not in my control, so being sexually assaulted, I did not choose that, but I am responsible for my choices surrounding what happens after that. And we are all responsible for every choice that we make in our life. And sometimes we are presented with choices that are all bad, and we have to make a choice to choose something that's bad, the least bad. But there is nobody else responsible for those choices. I am the only person who is responsible for my life. So if everyone took that kind of responsibility, so yes, I was a victim of things, but I do not see myself as a victim, and I am responsible for how I choose to move forward after the things that happen to me.
Yeah,
that's yeah.
Because anybody can be truly victimized. It's not like victimhood doesn't happen.
Right.
Very legitimate forms of victimhood that occur.
Yeah.
But the way I kind of distinguish it is, there's the incident where you were a victim, and then there's all the times you replay it in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And it's understandable why you would replay it in your mind. But to be honest, those were voluntary.
Mm-hmm.
The first time you weren't a volunteer. The second time and the third and the fourth and the fifth and the sixth and the seventh, where you keep replaying it, that's being the volunteer.
Right. Yeah. And living in that past. Like a lot of that, you know, therapy is obviously trying to pull you out of the past to move you forward. Right. And like I was saying, a lot of talk therapy re-traumatizes you because you feel that again. It's in your body. You know, the body keeps the score. That is in your body. And I have come, like, through all of the work that I've done, I can think about the things that have happened to me, the traumas, and there's nothing left in my body. So that's how I know that I have transcended the things that have happened to me. It's no longer in my body.
Wow, credit for that. That's quite an accomplishment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is. And forgiveness. Forgiveness was one of the hardest things for me to learn. And I still struggle with some things, but yeah, forgiveness. I don't feel the things in my body anymore when I think about my father, when I think about the man who assaulted me. It's gone.
Wow, good for you. That's really something.
Yeah.
Among other things, it's an example that shows us we really can get past the traumas that occurred in our experience. No matter what the level severity is of those traumas, we still can get past them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it takes work, and it's hard. It's really hard, and I don't want to minimize other people. The lighting is all weird. I'm sorry. I don't want to minimize other people's traumas. And I don't want to say, like, well, if I can do it, you can do it. I do not want to go there. But I want people to have hope. So I think hope is, like, so important. And somebody said recently that really stuck with me. Hope is the consequence of action. So in order to have hope, you actually have to do something. And I have worked really, really hard to give myself hope.
That's fantastic. Jody, I was just realizing we're like 3/4 into the show. Normally by now, I brought you in about a half an hour ago, so I apologize for that.
It's okay.
That's just kind of I just want to put out there, I really do want you in the conversation.
I know. I'm kind of taking it all in. I have a little bit different views of some of these things. So I'm just noodling. You know me. I like to sit and reflect on all of the things. I 1000% agree that our society is stuck in scarcity. And that needs to change because we live in an abundant world. And I mean, I was just having this conversation like 5 minutes before I hopped on with you guys about how disconnected we are as a society. In fact, my dad sent me a text this morning and said, hey, I'm reflecting on, like, being connected to people and to things. And I think that we're really disconnected as a society. So we were having this conversation all day long of we're disconnected with nature because we're stuck inside, or we choose to be inside, and we're disconnected from people because we're looking at our phones, and instead of calling somebody and hearing their voice or seeing them in person, we automatically go to text message or email. Like, what's the least amount that I can do to connect with people? And we're really missing this connection, which I think really aggravates all of the other things. Because if we're in this place of scarcity where nothing ever works out, whether it's with money or relationships or all of the things, we're going to continue to just see that narrative over and over again, and then keep breeding it. And I think that's a big deal. I think where I differ just a little bit is that I think, from my perspective and teaching abundance, where I come from is that we as a society, we put money on a pedestal. And we put billionaires on a pedestal. We put people with money on a pedestal. Their lives are great. They're amazing. They're wonderful. That's what you want to strive for. And my entire coaching program is about disconnecting that, because I don't think that anything is absolutely true, or very few things are absolutely true, meaning that if you have money, the concept of if you have money, then everything is perfect. it's not an absolute truth, because you can find people like you were talking about, Walt, that have problems in relationships. I think about different people of wealth who were not happy. Robin Williams is the first one that kind of stands out to me. The funny guy, everybody loved him, and he was drowning in sorrow and obviously depressed and took his own life. So it's not a clear connection. I have money, I have things, I have status, I have power, and then I'll be good. My life will be perfect. And so I've been, I guess if I want to fight for a cause, that's the cause that I've been fighting for a long time, is getting people to disconnect the two, that it's not about holding money on a pedestal. And when I have this, then I will be good. Or when they have less, the world will be better. It's taking that power away from money and having that complete responsibility of me and how I see the world. And one thing that pops up in my mind is that money, when you really start to study money is just a piece of paper now. It's backed by the government's promise that it's worth something, and our belief that that is true, which could change very quickly.
Well, it's becoming an electron, but I take your point.
Exactly, right? Like now it's just digits on a screen, and they're typing more digits in. They're creating money with fractional reserve banking, and there's all this money that's out there. And 2020 really proved it, that our governments, whether you're in Canada or United States or anywhere around the world, they hit the printing presses and they printed more money, more and more and more and more money. They could have eradicated hunger, but all that money didn't. So what is that saying? And I don't know what it's saying, outside of that we have a societal problem, and that I don't think it's exactly money will fix it. I think that the issue is so much deeper. And I love that we're starting to connect to that here. Because like you said, Walt, we could redistribute all the wealth and still end up in the same place because of the way that most people view the world.
Well, I don't know if you are familiar with Ishmael by Daniel Quinn.
No.
I think that should be required reading for every human on the planet. It talks about the myths that civilizations follow, and it talks about the scarcity myth, and how as humans, when we were able to stop being hunter-gatherers, when the agricultural developments, that is actually when the scarcity mentality started. When we were able to produce food, it actually developed the scarcity mentality because we were able to start locking it up and have ownership of things. So the hierarchies started, and that's when the taker mentality started. And I believe that billionairism is like the evolution of the taker mentality.
Yeah, I can see that. And our whole world has shifted to, we don't grow our own food. We barely go in nature. We don't even know where the food comes from. I live on a farm, and I think it's hilarious when people are like, why are farmers so pissed off? The food comes from the grocery store. Yeah. The farmers put it there. The farmers put it there. Like, it's crazy. Where does the water come from? I have a lot of like city friends that are like, what do you mean you have to haul in your own water? Like, there's like a pipe that brings it in. No, that's not how the world works here. But it's magical when you start to learn. You can grow almost anything anywhere, depending on, I live in Canada, so it's a little bit different in the winter. But in the summer, we have greenhouses and stuff like that, and you can pretty much grow almost anything here. And I really believe that nature, that God or the universe, whatever you want to put in that box there, that gave us everything that we need to thrive, not survive, thrive. But we've forgotten how to make that work or how to do that. And then, like you said, giving up control on a lot of things like food. I know here there's like a milk cartel, apparently, like things like that. You can only like hunt one deer. You got to get a license to go hunting and stuff. And I understand some of the things behind it. Like, we don't want mass extinction of populations and stuff. But what happened to the philosophy of like you're eating to provide for your family, but you're like, I came from a home of settlers, or a lineage of settlers where they ate everything off the pig, everything off the cow, like nothing went to waste because they were starving. And that's just, that mentality is gone too. Like we live in a very wasteful society.
Oh yeah.
Buy a new toaster because you can't fix it today. Buy a new this, buy a new that, right? Like it's just, there's so many things wrapped up into this issue from where I sit, at least.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. The planned obsolescence of things and the things that corporations are allowed to get away with that are detrimental to the planet and to us, and they're still allowed to sell these things. Mm-hmm. I don't understand how we allow that as a society. We're allowing people to poison us. We are allowing them to produce masses of plastic when there are alternatives. Why aren't we fighting that?
On the money issue, I'm reminded from what you were talking about, Jody Lynn, I'm reminded of a story that goes back to when I was married. My ex-wife had a nephew at that time, very, very young, like I'm going to say 3 years old, somewhere in that range. And his mom was dealing with some sort of issue, and they didn't have enough money to buy something. And the nephew said, "But mommy, just go to the wall. Go to the wall. That's where you get the money."
Right? Just comes out of the wall.
It comes out of the wall. Same kind of mentality. Yeah. Disconnection happens in a lot of different ways. Reconnection happens in a lot of different ways as well. And obviously, that's one of the things we talk about a lot here on the show, how to become reconnected in your own life, no matter what it is that you're trying to reconnect with. Because ultimately, we're all reconnecting with the same thing anyway. But we think about it differently because we have different kinds of experiences. We have different kinds of problems going on in our lives. So we think about all of them differently. We just find that over time, there's a lot of similarity between them in terms of how we do reconnect with them. But the issues themselves seem quite varied, quite different. And I'm just looking at the clock. I'm saying, wow, okay, we went through this quickly.
That have been fast.
Even the Roopers stopped. I mean, I think they were listening. They were kind of turned on by the whole thing because even it's one of those topics. We have a few things that we always like to do at the end of every show, and I want to make sure we get them in before we run out of time here. First and foremost, this all did actually start about a book that you wrote, Diana, that is out and that people need to know about. We should probably tell them not just what the title of the book is. We actually said that earlier, but we should remind them what the title is. But we should probably also give them a clue of where to find it. I mean, it makes a lot easier, so fill us in.
Yeah, so it actually it's on pre-sale right now, so you can order it now pretty much almost anywhere books are sold. So it's on Kobo, it's Barnes and Noble, Amazon, I think Apple, all the big places. It's available on pre-sale. The actual launch date is January 13th, and again, the title is They Could Be Saviors.
All right. And I know one question that I often get from listeners on this particular topic. Is it also available at independent booksellers?
In a way, yes. So if you go into any local bookstore and say, I would like you to order this book for me, they can. They probably don't have it on the shelves. We're launching my publicist is helping me get it out there. So we're hoping to have physical copies in indie bookstores as much as possible. But right now, they can order it for you. So if you're anti-Amazon and big sellers, you can definitely go to your favorite bookstore and have them order it for you.
All right, good. Second question also that goes along with it is, obviously you're launching it in January, so this is part of the promotional tour. This is kind of a tongue-in-cheek question, to be perfectly honest. But are you also going to do it old school? Are you going to go like into bookstores and sign books for lines of people? You're going to do that, yeah?
Oh yeah, that's part of the plan. Yes.
Right. Well, yeah, I think that's cool. That's part of the experience, right?
Yeah, and what I'd really like to do is I'd like book clubs to contact me, and I will show up to your book club meeting. So,
Ooh.
like, if all of your people purchase the book and you want me to come for the meeting where you're discussing it, I can come via Zoom, any platform, or if you're in the Seattle-ish area, I'm happy to travel, 50 miles or so and be there in person.
And then this final question for you, I think this is probably a softball question. This is going to be a really easy one, but I'm going to kind of guess that you like hearing from people. Am I right on that one?
Ooh.
How do people reach you?
Yeah, anyone can write to me at hello@dianacolleenauthor.com. That's my email address, and I would love to hear from people. I'd love to hear what people thought about this podcast. Once they have the book, I would love to hear what they think about it.
All right, good. So, all right, so that's like part one. We have a 3-part ending. That's part one. We just completed parts 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. All right, so that part's done. Part two is where I go to Jody Lynn, who not only was sitting back and listening, but she's a note taker too. So I mean, she's got this all very well organized. But she's also an amazing person at tying everything together and making sense out of something, particularly when it's a topic that kind of goes all over the place like this one did. I mean, was there a topic we didn't touch? Probably. I'm just not thinking what it was. But she'll tie it all together. So Jody Lynn, how are we going to tie this together today?
Oh my gosh. I feel like we did bounce around a lot of ideas, but a lot of the themes come back to this idea of responsibility, healing, and connection. Taking responsibility for our lives and healing the past trauma so that we could have a different life. And I love your story, Diana, and how beautiful it is where you thought there was no hope and then you took action, like your quote, and you found that hope through this different modality. And I love that you're talking about that. And I love that inside of your book, you're really casting a vision for what you want for the future generation and for society, for us to deal with the stuff that has come up, whether, it's billionaire status or not so much billionaire status, everyone in between. We all have stuff that we need to deal with, to move through, to get to the other side so that we can have that hope, that we can build that life. And I think it's so beautiful because when you cast that vision of being connected and taken care of and how abundant life truly is, that message will surely ripple out and change the future of humanity. So thank you for that.
That's what I'm hoping for sure. Yes.
And you can see why I call on her to do this, because she does it really, really well.
That was beautiful. Yeah.
She's expert at this. We talked about, we keep going back to the money, and all I can think about is I'm not a billionaire. I'm not a billionaire. I'm barely a thousandaire. So, I'm not sure I even understand what it's like to be in that mindset. I'm trying to get there, but I don't really understand that mindset. But it's been fun to explore this. One thing that I do know for sure, though, this is something I discovered a few years ago just by kind of noticing what is in front of all of us. We just don't really pay any attention to it. Because ever since the advent of the internet, and now we have this ability where you're in Seattle, she's in Alberta, I'm in Connecticut. We have listeners all around the world, and we're all doing this live through these amazing platforms, and we're streaming to YouTube and to Facebook. We're all over the place doing this. I mean, that wasn't even possible 30 years ago. And then we can publish books, and we're writing blogs, and we're doing podcasts, and we're putting out all this stuff, and we're sharing all this information. And so many people are sharing stuff that they learned from their own lives, that they went through some sort of trauma, perhaps. They went through. You described some of the traumas you went through. They went through stuff, and they came out the other side and they said, "Wow, I've got to share this with the rest of the world," and which is wonderful. And it happens so much now that we have this this huge amount of stuff being shared, far more than most of us can even comprehend, and people are being helped by it in ways that we never even find out about, that we never even see. We don't even know who it is. Sometimes we do. It's great when we hear from somebody, but most of the time we don't get any sense of it, and we don't get any credit for it. And that was the one that I recognized. I said, we aren't getting any credit for all this stuff. There's so many people doing all this giving, helping people out, and we're not getting any credit for it. And I said, well, you know what? I'm a host of a podcast. I can do something about that. So Diana, on behalf of those people you've never met, never seen, and never will meet, and never will see, who you've been helping in ways you didn't even know about, on their behalf, thank you for what you're doing, because you're making a difference in this world.
Thank you so much. That means everything to me. So thank you.
And thank you for joining us and telling your story. Best of luck with the book. This is one of the wildest topics we've done in a while. So thank you for you just opened our minds. Poof.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. This has been so enjoyable. I've loved every minute of it. Thank you.
And thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We will see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.